Hi guys, this is GSMDome and I'm here with a phone called the Infinix Note 40 Pro Plus in the 5G version that comes with an amazing amount of accessories. It's got a case bundle with it, it's got a wired fast charger, 100 watts, it's got a wireless charger, a screen protection, even headphones, so yeah, that's pretty impressive. And it's got a LED ring light around the camera at the back side. It's priced out only around $400, maybe even less in some countries, and it's got quite the generous brightness for the screen. So it seems to have everything. It's not the first Infinix phone we've tested. We've played with the Infinix Note 40 Pro before. This is the Pro Plus actually, which comes with a fast charge and some minor modifications. There's also, I should probably mention this, a main 108 megapixel camera with optical image stabilization and even a taste of AI through something called Folax, which relies on ChatGPT and can even give you well, advice when it comes to your love life. There's Folax Translate, chat translation, image translation, and more, but you're going to learn that towards the end of the review. Okay, so let's get things going. This is the Infinix Note 40 Pro Plus. Now the review starts as usual with the design. The design is premium, just like the Note 40 Pro 4G, which we tested before. I wouldn't say there's much difference visually. We got a flat camera module here, also rather rectangular with a two-tone approach. This hue we have here is called Obsidian Black. It has a marble-like effect at the backside. There's also a version called Vintage Green, which has a leather backside if you prefer another texture. There's also a racing edition, but we don't have it here. It's a rather large phone at 6.78 inches in diagonal. It reminds me of the Motorola Edges on account of the curved screen you can see here. Good news is that we have IP53 certification. It can take some splashing, and we also have Gorilla Glass for the screen, while the backside is covered with glass. The frame is all plastic. The curvature of the screen are the ones that make it stand out, plus that special LED from the back side. It's got a pretty premium build. It's a very light phone. It's something like 190 grams and 8.1 millimeters in thickness, which I find to be reasonable. Now on paper we have the very same screen which we had on the previous model, the Non Plus one. I'm talking about an AMOLED panel which has a diagonal of 6.78 inches. That's the diagonal we're getting here, and I'm actually looking for the Play Store here. Okay, so let's get back to it. It's an AMOLED 6.78 inches with a 120 Hz refresh rate and Full HD Plus resolution. It's got Gorilla Glass protection and a pretty impressive screen to body ratio, almost 90%, actually 89.8. Now if you want to see the screen in action, we have this video prepared here. Definitely takes up the whole screen, doesn't leave much else around it. I see there's also a special window here, a side window with some extra options. It's a bright and vivid panel, actually brighter than I expected. It's got wide view angles and a pretty solid contrast even in the full sunlight of the month of August. It's a satisfying experience, I have to say, and once again, on paper we're promised up to 1300 nits of brightness, but you'll see that we actually got maybe even more than that. So when it comes to the brightness test, let's see what we achieved here. We achieved 923 lux units. This means it's superior to phones like the Xiaomi 13 Ultra, Motorola Edge 50 Pro and the Nothing Phone 2. We're surpassed by the Galaxy A55 by only a few lux, and above it we have the Realme GT6, but we're actually in good company, top 30 material, and I'm actually pleasantly surprised by it. Now if you want options for this screen, you're going to have to go here to display and brightness. You got your light theme and your dark theme, you got your brightness, adaptive brightness, we got eye care, high brightness mode, which makes it even brighter, color styles, bright colors, original colors, and color temperature, and screen refresh rate can be set to 120, 60 or auto switch. A very satisfying screen, but now let's go inside the phone, and if you want to do that, there's a special app that's called IDA, and let's see if we actually have it installed or not. Even though some phones show their CPU in the About section, IDA usually never fails. So here we're dealing with a MediaTek Helio G99, which would be the basic version, would be pretty underwhelming, but we do have that's a strange behavior, we do have the Ultimate version. Okay, this is odd. So let's maybe go to the about and find out more about the handset. Interestingly, it's listed as the MediaTek Dimensity 7020. So as a quick recap, you should know that the Infinix Note 40 Pro 4G had the Helio G99 Ultimate. This one here has the MediaTek Dimensity 7020. It's developed on the base of the process of 6 nanometers. It has 2 performing cores, Cortex-A78, and also 6 cores for energy efficiency. We're also getting 12 gigs of RAM, and which can be supplemented from here with the special virtual RAM feature, which can go up to 12 gigabytes extra, so a total of 24 gigabytes of RAM. We also have a storage of 256 gigabytes, if I'm not mistaken. And let's see how the benchmarks performed. Okay, so we seem to have everything covered here, RAM and ROM, and let's talk about performance. First and foremost, I'm more interested than anything by the screenshots, because we did a throttling test and we achieved here a drop of 21% performance, which is actually not bad compared to some flagships out there. There's also not much overheating here, so another piece of good news, but I'm curious to put this Dimensity to the test in benchmarks, which we have. In Antutu 10, we're just above the previous model and also above the Moto G84 and a few other handsets. We should also surpass the likes of Oppo A98 and HMD Pulse Pro and a few other phones with Unisoc processors. Now, we're below a few mid-rangers, which you're going to see here now. Nokia XR21, Nubia Focus Pro, and the Moto G85, which we tested recently. Now we move further, we go to the Geekbench 6 with a multi-core, just above the Redmi Note 12 Pro Plus and the Redmi Note 12 Pro, but below the Redmi Note 13 series, so we're stuck between those two. Also below the Moto G54, which was a battery phone, not a very flattering comparison, and below Galaxy A34 from last year and the Honor Magic 6 Lite. Okay, so if you want to do the whole graphics test, 3D Mark Snapshot Extreme Unlimited, we're above the first Pixel XL, Huawei P10, so not very flattering when it comes to the GPU. We're in the company of phones from 3 or 4 years ago, even in the Vulkan test. You can see here, we're fighting Galaxy Note phones and Huawei Nova phones. So not the best in GPU, but in general tasks, it should handle itself well. If you're curious about the temperature, you can go here in benchmarks 38 degrees Celsius and when in games 32.7. So there's not any trace of overheating, luckily. Okay, now, as far as the battery goes, it's a pretty hefty one, but not all the way hefty. It's not 5,000. It's 4,600 mAh. So yeah, at least we have very fast charging. As I said before, 100 watts charging via wire. But before we get to the charging, let's talk about the actual playback time. We achieved 16 hours and 45 minutes of video playback, which is not exactly bad, but nowadays we're starting to see more than 20 hours on most phones, mid-rangers launched over the past year. So let's see which other models we surpassed here. I see that we surpassed the Realme C55, Xiaomi 13 Ultra, Motorola H40 Neo, but we're still below the likes of the Poco M4 Pro, HMD Pulse Pro, which is rather still recent, and also below the likes of a Xiaomi 12 Lite, which was from last year, or the OnePlus Nord 3, which is still a landmark. When it comes to continuous usage, a pretty decent 12 hours and 25 minutes, just above Galaxy A52 and Moto G54, which was once again a bit of a battery phone back in the day. Now let's see which other models we were able to surpass. We surpassed the Nothing Phone 1, we surpassed Moto G60, Galaxy A51, which are older phones, I'll admit it. We also surpassed the OnePlus 11, which was a flagship. And we scored below by a few hours. Let's see, a Galaxy A53, for example. I see a Poco M3 here. I also see Huawei Nova 12 SE, which is recent, it's from this year. And the Moto G85, which we tested recently. So I would say in between. The charging has me shocked. 27 minutes for a full charge, and after 15 minutes you're at 65%. That 100-watt charger is definitely paying off. Okay, now when it comes to the acoustics, we have a stereo setup here. We see one speaker at the bottom here, and the other one is here at the top. We're no longer resorting only to the earpiece and also to the, well, you know, bottom speaker. So yeah, that's kind of cool. We should also have JBL acoustics here. There should be a logo inscripted here with JBL. You don't see every day that apply to a smartphone. We also have a bunch of headphones on board, and yeah, I think it's time for an audio test. Not the highest volume, but a pretty decent bass, I have to say. High notes, not that impressive. And let's now see some results of the tests we did. We measured the sound with a decibel meter. With a typical acoustic sample, we achieved 78.4 decibels at the top, 86.7 decibels at the bottom. With this value here, it's quite a powerful volume in spite of what I said before, even though I expected more, seeing how JBL happens here. When you're using the top volume, you're going to notice some vibration of the case, but all in all, let's see which handsets we have surpassed with this value. Okay, so we have 500 phones tested, and we were able to best the likes of Motorola Edge 40, when we also surpassed the likes of the Redmi Note 10 Pro, which is a bit older, I'll admit it, and the HMD Pulse Pro, which is more recent, and the Honor 200, which is pricier, from what I remember. So basically, among the 500 phones we tested, we're in the top 200. That's something to remember. When it comes to multimedia, which is basically gaming, 91.6 decibels. We expect usually 99 or 100 here. Not a very impressive phone if you're looking at the first spot, and it's 107 decibels. Once again, at least we have this advantage of the JBL and stereo speakers. Now, as you can see, a lot of phones have surpassed us with this value here, and among them we find Xiaomi's from a few years ago, Moto Razr 50, Nokia 1, Nokia 3, LG 6, and OnePlus 12, plus the Xiaomi 12. Looking for cheaper phones, I'm sure there's like the Moto G54, for example, or even some Realme C series. Now, if you go into the settings, I'm definitely sure you're going to find some personalization. You go to the sound, ringtones, DTS sound can be set to these values, smart music, video, or game, and there's an equalizer here which you can use with these custom channels. There are not a lot of them, but at least they're there. Okay, enough about the sound. Let's talk about the camera. So, okay, the setup is the exact same one from the Note 40 Pro 4G. I have a triple back camera, with the star of the show being the 108 megapixel main sensor with optical image stabilization, f1.8 aperture, and the other two cameras are a bit more modest, 2 megapixel macro, 2 megapixel bokeh. Okay, now as far as the front camera goes, this is actually impressive, not about the sensor thing, but about the LED flash thing. So if you're here and the flash has been lit up for some reason, let's turn it off. So if you're using the selfie camera, you can activate its own flash like this. So yeah, that's nice to have. Okay, now there's plenty of options here, actually more than I expected. I see we have slow motion, time-lapse, dual video, short video, sky shop, pro, panorama, super macro, AR shot, super night, portrait, AI camera as the core option, video and filming. In video, I'm curious about the resolution. You can see it's 2K, doesn't go all the way to 4K, a limitation on account of the CPU. We also have bokeh video, which is something usually reserved for pricier phones. And now let's talk about the actual camera samples. Okay, so these are the shots we've taken with the phone. I'm going to start with the selfies. I would say they're just okay, nothing out of the ordinary. Decent amount of focus and details. Even after we removed their beautifying effects, they're still fine. So yeah, there's a bit of a smoothing going on even after you deactivate the beautifying effects. That's something that I noticed. So the AI keeps making you more beautiful and more flattering. I expected a bit more from 32 megapixels, seeing how usually phones which have such high resolutions for their front cameras deliver a lot if you really use the maximum level of resolution. I mean, the eyes are pretty expressive, you may post them in social media, but they feel a bit too retouched for my face. They're also a bit too white for my own taste, especially the portrait ones. Okay, now aside from that, during the daytime, I would say that the experience is what I would call balanced. That's something to note here. So the colors are balanced, the brightness is balanced, and don't go expecting too much from the zoom because we only operate without a telephoto camera. So yeah, it's well balanced. I would say that the color calibration is quite decent. I didn't notice any oversaturation or overexposure. Even with the sun in front of us, which has a strange shape, the greens remained in a pretty decent fashion, and the colors are just fine. The blues, the yellows, the reds, they're quite fine in my book. And we also captured some beautiful flowers here and there with some lovely texture and focus. We also got very close, by the way, speaking of close-up. We did close-up, we did bokeh, we did macro, and some of them are wallpaper worthy. Even the 2 megapixel macros were fine, which is something that's rare nowadays. Honestly, I usually prefer an ultra-wide camera with macro abilities, but I'll make an exception here because we actually were able to deliver. I find it shocking that there are still roses in August. They should be dead, killed by the sun by now, but I'm happy we had something to capture even at the end of the summer. Now, the zoom. Okay, so we don't have a dedicated zoom here. We can make a 2x crop from the 108 megapixel camera, and I would say we're doing fine. There's virtually no difference from a 2x optical zoom camera at this point. Ever since Realme did that with the Realme 9 Pro or something like that, things have been good for us. Now, as a bonus, we have some special crazy filters which you can apply and make the sky look like this, create an aurora, and other crazy features like this if you really want to play with the options here. You can add a rainbow and many more things. Basically, it's a pretty realistic camera. It doesn't throw gimmicks at you and doesn't make the colors too vibrant. It has a very good close-up focus. That's something to remember here. It's only the selfies that draw back part of the experience. Very good close-ups, by the way. I have a prediction that food photos would also look pretty badass. Okay, so during the nighttime we have a night mode which does its job quite fine. One would say too fine, but at least it solves some of the issues of too strong lights or too dark areas. But without the night mode, things are not very impressive, so you'd better keep it on at all times. Some of the halos are a bit big, but they don't have that elongated light which appears for some handsets. The selfies are nothing to write home about. You definitely won't enjoy the zoom here. And once again, sometimes the night mode feels a bit overkill. So this is a regular shot, which is not bad. This is the night mode shot, which makes everything appear a bit too white and too day-like. At least if you feel that some of these lights are too bright, they may be corrected by the night mode. Here it's actually useful. You can see inside the shop better. So yeah, it equalizes everything in a fine manner. Okay, so these are photos. We should also have some video, 16 of them here. Once again, you're only stuck to 2K as the maximum resolution. If you want selfie videos, we got this one here. Not exactly vlogging material or TikTok material, but the stabilization and focus aren't the worst in the world. It's the white background that bothers me, while the stabilization and focus are decent. This is the color calibration test. We have everything here. We have the blues, the reds, the yellows. They're fine, but the stabilization is quite hit and miss. I expected more. This is the stabilization test we rely on. We're working up a set of flights, and you can see the stabilization struggling. It's pulling on the image to make it, well, more stable. This is actually one of the better ones. There's also a slight overexposure here and there. Especially the 2K videos are lacking in stabilization. The Full HD ones are a bit better. Okay, so here we have a focus test, which is actually, it fared better than expected. Focus on the foreground, focus on the background. So the focus was pretty fine. We're walking again, and once again the stabilization is not impressive. On a sunny day there will be plenty of overexposure and oversaturation, as you can see for yourself here. The colors should be correct unless the sun is very strong. That's something to remember here. And we also have some nighttime samples. They're nothing to write home about. There's a lot of reflections, darker areas and noisy areas. The quality drops a bit. However, I have a feeling that if I shot this scenery in a static mode without walking, I would actually be happy with the results. And the zoom is pretty smooth. I didn't expect that. The zoom is smooth when walking. Okay, we're pretty much done with the camera. I think we can talk about other things, like for example connectivity. The phone has it all. It has 5G connectivity. It has an infrared emitter here at the top side to control your TV set. There's Wi-Fi dual band, GPS, NFC, and there's USB-C 2.0 port at the bottom side. The calls were pretty decent in clarity, and if you go here to the speed test, you'll see that. Let's see what we achieved here. Okay, no, leave me alone. I don't want reviews. So okay, these are the results we achieved on 5G, up to 227 megapixels in downloads, 98.6 megapixels in uploads, while when it came to the Wi-Fi, we achieved 92.3 megapixels in download and 92.5 megapixels in upload. I think we can fare better here if we redo the test. I'm pretty sure we can achieve something like 300 megapixels on Wi-Fi. Okay, so that's about it, and let's talk about the software now. Luckily, it's Android 14. Which is something nice to see from this brand, which is making a statement in Europe. It says Android here, not Android, just a mistake. And aside from that, we're seeing a pretty customized interface, which lets you customize the experience yourself. This is Folax. Aside from the usual things like asking it to write an essay, write a poem, or tell you common knowledge stuff, you can have the pal feature here. The pal can tell jokes, can sing, and you can even ask it for advice if you're having a tough time in your life. That's very good for a companion. Now, if you do this, you're treated to widgets, which are pretty good looking and stock inspired. We have wallpapers, good looking ones, and you can create ones with AI. This is the X theme. And once again, a lot of customization can happen here. This is the appearance, icon size, and more. Now, let me go to the settings and see what I mean. This is the personalization itself. There's themes, an online AI wallpaper generator or live wallpaper, always on display, lock screen color, DIY fonts, video shows, magazine lock screen, and so much more. Okay, this is a sort of a home screen collection of useful things. Tips, widgets, and things like that. Swipe down, you're going to see the quick settings and the notification. Infrared is also pretty handy if you want to control your TV set, set-top box, etc. And there's also a fingerprint scanner in the screen if you want to secure everything. It's fast and snappy. And aside from that, there are special features here like the dynamic bar, the floating windows, the MEM Fusion, the smart panel. Gamers have a dedicated game mode with a special panel, and the X Arena with sound effects and extra performance options and recording options, and even an anti-addiction area. Plus, graphical style can be set up in various modes here. Once again, that sidebar I mentioned before can be activated from here. You can open apps as floating windows, but it's also an option for a dynamic bar here at the top side. It reminds me of the capsule from the Realme phones or dynamic island from the iPhone. So these are some of these options. You can see here the charging, the recording, and so much more. So if I turned on the recorder like this, it should show up here. So that's what the capsule is all about. Nice. We have pre-installed apps galore. We have productivity ones like WPS Office, X Arena for gaming, My Health. They even have their own health solution. I'm actually pretty impressed by that. So this is My Health with the steps and all that. I'm pretty convinced they also have some wearables to sync it to, and they also have the freezer here. You can put apps in the freezer and free some storage space, some memory. This is the Phone Master, which lets you manage the resources. You can clean the junk, clean the memory usage. You have network management, data saving mode, and so much more. So this is the software in a nutshell. I think we have reached the end of the review. It's time for the verdict. So we have pros and cons. Now, on the pros side, we have a premium looking phone for sure, with a glass or leather backside, and also BMW edition. We have a very bright curved screen with 120 Hz refresh rate. We have a decent performance here and a very fast charge and a lot of accessories bundled. Actually, let me show you. These are the accessories you're getting in the box. So we have the screen protector, we have the case, we have the headphones. Haven't seen those in a while, have you? We have the charger, which is not exactly huge for 100 watts. And this little puck here is a wireless charger, believe it or not, can be attached to the back of the case here and juice up your phone wirelessly. So everything fits here in the same package with this phone. Those are the pros. On the con side, the battery is smaller than the non-plus version, the 4G version. The performance isn't exactly mind-blowing, especially GPU-wise, and the photo camera, particularly the selfie one, is just okay. There are some limitations for overexposure, for filming, and for selfies. In general, this phone feels like it's, well, good enough at everything, but doesn't excel at something aside from the screen. I would have to say that the charging is probably its best aspect, and of course the lots of accessories we have. The software is actually a pleasant surprise. Even the fact that they have ChatGPT integrated here as your friend is shocking in a good manner. So yeah, it's a phone that does it all, but once again doesn't exactly excel at everything. I would say that the fast battery charge and the accessories are the best thing about it, and the fact that it doesn't seem to get stuck, freeze, or have any problems with the core apps. As the price drops, it will become more and more appealing, and I would say that the close-up photos are something to remember here, plus the fact that you have wireless charging for such a low price. That's it from us. Goodbye.